Ever catch yourself daydreaming about a career where you're not just stuck behind a desk,
Yeah.
you know, but out there making big things happen, like moving mountains of stuff around the world?
Right.
Well, today we're going to roll up our sleeves and do a deep dive into becoming an import-export specialist,
Yeah.
specifically in the world of hardware,
Real
plumbing,
nitty gritty.
and heating equipment.
Love it.
So get ready to trade those daydreams
Yeah,
for some serious knowledge,
for sure.
because we're going deep into what it really takes to make it in this field.
Absolutely.
And we're using insights from RoleCatcher's super comprehensive career guide.
Yeah, they're doing some cool stuff over there.
It's actually pretty amazing because RoleCatcher's platform
Oh, yeah.
is like a case study in itself, right?
Yeah.
They're using some serious AI power to change how people even approach job hunting, in this field especially.
It's really changing the game.
Yeah, it's wild.
Mm.
But before we go too deep down that rabbit hole,
Right.
let's start with the basics. What does an import-export specialist actually do?
Okay, so it's definitely not as simple as picking up the phone and saying,
Right.
all right, I need 10,000 widgets, send them my way. It's so much more than that.
Okay.
Think of it more like you're a conductor
Okay.
leading a global orchestra, but instead of instruments,
Right.
you're harmonizing the movement of pipes,
I like it.
valves, heating elements,
Yeah.
all that good stuff. And you're doing all that
Okay.
while navigating this crazy, intricate world of international trade regulations.
Whoa.
It's a lot.
Okay, so it sounds like you need more than just like a knack for numbers.
Oh, yeah.
You need to be crazy detail-oriented too.
Absolutely. Detail-oriented is an understatement.
The guide really emphasizes how important it is to be on top of documentation.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Can you give me like a real-world example of what could go wrong
Oh, yeah.
if you're not super organized?
Okay, so picture this. You've got a huge shipment of brass valves coming in, right?
Yeah.
Some are coming from a supplier in China, others from Italy.
Okay. Yeah.
Seems pretty straightforward so far.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the catchery. Those valves, they're classified under different tariff codes,
Oh, okay.
depending on where they're from.
Right.
So let's say you mess up even one single digit on those customs forms.
Oh, no.
You're talking major delays,
Ugh.
fines, potentially even your entire shipment getting stuck at the border.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a plumbing nightmare.
Yeah, that's not good.
Not good at all.
So it's not enough to just know the products inside and out.
Nope.
You also got to understand all the nitty-gritty details.
Mhm.
How are they classified? How are they valued? How are they taxed?
Exactly. It's a lot to keep track of.
And on top of all that, you need to stay updated on all those ever-changing trade agreements.
Oh, yeah. Don't even get me started on those.
Well, actually, speaking of which, the guide mentions those quite a bit.
Right.
What's the key takeaway for someone who's new to all this?
It boils down to this. You absolutely have to grasp how these agreements directly affect your work.
Okay.
Like, take the USMCA, for example.
Okay.
This isn't just some political handshake.
Right.
It literally determines things like tariffs, import quotas,
Got it.
even rules of origin for the products.
Wow.
Knowing these agreements inside and out
Yeah.
can make or break a deal.
So high stakes.
High stakes.
High attention to detail.
All the details.
But what about the good stuff? The rewards.
Ah, yes, the fun part.
RoleCatcher talks about this high earning potential.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get specific? Are we talking like comfortable living
Okay.
or private island retirement fund levels of income?
So RoleCatcher's data actually suggests that if you're an experienced import-export manager, especially those with niche expertise,
Okay.
they can definitely earn well into the six figures.
Really?
Yeah, we're talking on par with some software development roles,
Wow.
which, let's be honest, that's pretty impressive for a field that involves wrenches and pipes.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
It's pretty wild.
But even with a fantastic paycheck,
Right.
RoleCatcher keeps it real. They don't sugarcoat the challenges.
No, they don't.
We're talking fierce competition, long hours.
It's not easy.
It seems like you need to be as tough as the plumbing you're dealing with to thrive in this world.
Yeah, you need resilience, adaptability,
Mhm.
and a big dose of patience, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing.
Yeah.
The guide also really emphasizes the deep satisfaction that comes from making these crazy global deals happen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you're not just shipping boxes, you're solving these complex logistical puzzles,
Right.
building relationships across countries.
Okay.
It's definitely a career for those who love a challenge and thrive under pressure.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm definitely sensing a theme here. This is not a career for the faint of heart.
No, you gotta be ready to hustle.
But let's say someone's listening and they're like, sign me up. I'm ready to dive into this world of international trade.
Yeah.
Where do they even start? What does that career path actually look like?
So RoleCatcher does a really good job of laying it all out. They show a clear progression from entry level all the way up to those big manager roles.
So you're saying you don't have to have the entire harmonized tariff schedule memorized on day one?
Thankfully, no. You're not expected to be an expert right off the bat.
Okay, good to know.
Entry level is all about learning the ropes, assisting with documentation, getting comfortable with those customs regulations, probably a lot of data entry, to be honest.
Ah, the glamorous life of an international trade rock star.
Right. But hey, it's where you learn the foundation, and that's crucial as you
Right.
climb the ladder.
Got it. Pay your dues, prove you can handle the details. So what's next? What does a junior import-export specialist actually do?
So that's where you start taking on more responsibility. Instead of just assisting, you're managing some of those documentation processes yourself, talking directly with suppliers and customers, maybe even doing some research on trade regulations for specific shipments.
Those about checking boxes, more about using your brain.
Exactly. And the guide stresses that this is the time to level up your skills. Remember that certified international trade professional thing we mentioned?
The CITP.
Yeah, that one. RoleCatcher sample profiles at this level, they almost always include pursuing certifications like that.
So it's like a golden ticket to get noticed.
Pretty much. It shows employers you're serious about mastering this whole import-export game.
Makes sense. So let's fast forward a bit. You've got a few years of experience under your belt. You know the lingo. Maybe even have that fancy certificate framed on your wall. What does a seasoned import-export specialist actually do differently from those earlier stages?
That's where it gets really interesting. You move beyond the day-to-day and start thinking big picture. We're talking developing import-export strategies for the entire company, managing relationships with suppliers and customers all over the world, doing risk assessments for shipments. It's a whole different ballgame.
So less about making sure each I is dotted and T is crossed, and more about seeing the whole global trade chessboard.
Exactly. The guide even mentions senior specialists being responsible for dealing with potential supply chain problems. You have to be anticipating those roadblocks before they even pop up.
Whoa, that's a lot of pressure. I'm guessing the paycheck is a bit nicer at that level.
You know it. RoleCatcher says senior specialists can earn significantly more than entry level, especially if they've got expertise in a specific product or region.
Speaking of specialization, you mentioned earlier that this field has some really interesting niches. What if someone's dream is to be the ultimate guru for importing, say, antique clawfoot tubs from Victorian England? Is that a real career path?
Absolutely. RoleCatcher's guide actually highlights a bunch of these niche areas. They make a really compelling argument for becoming an expert in something very specific.
Less competition and way more demand because you're the only one who knows the ins and outs of importing vintage plumbing fixtures.
Exactly. They say that kind of specialization can often mean even higher earning potential. You're basically irreplaceable.
Now, that's what I like to hear. Okay, before we get lost in a daydream of restoring antique bathtubs, let's talk about that other title, Forwarding Manager. What role do they play in all of this?
Think of the forwarding manager as the logistics expert. They're all about the actual movement of goods, working with shipping companies, freight forwarders, customs brokers. They make sure everything gets where it needs to go.
So more time on the docks, less time behind a desk.
Possibly. The point is there are so many different paths you can take within this field.
I like it. Lots of options.
Mhm.
So we've talked about starting out, becoming a seasoned specialist. But what's the peak of this mountain? What does it actually mean to be an import-export manager?
That's where everything we've talked about comes together. You're not just managing shipments anymore, you're managing teams of people, creating import-export strategies that span multiple countries.
Wow, multiple countries. That's next level.
It's like you're conducting the entire symphony of international trade for your company.
You've gone from decoding tariff codes to basically running the show.
Pretty much. And with that level of responsibility comes a great salary and often the chance to travel internationally.
This is all very exciting, but let's get real for a second.
Hmm.
What are some tangible skills that someone needs to really thrive as they climb this career ladder?
RoleCatcher breaks down the essential skills, and it's not all about trade agreements and paperwork.
Don't hold out on me. What else is there?
Communication is absolutely key. You're dealing with people from all over the globe, each with their own culture and communication style.
So being able to negotiate in Mandarin could be just as important as knowing the latest trade rules with China.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just language. It's about understanding cultural differences, too.
Give me an example. What's a cultural misstep that could totally ruin a deal?
Something as simple as direct eye contact. In some cultures, that can be seen as aggressive, or even how you exchange business cards. In some countries, it's a whole formal thing.
Wow, so many things to be aware of. It sounds like a crash course in international business etiquette would be super valuable.
Totally. And beyond that, you need strong problem-solving skills.
Because no matter how well you plan, something will inevitably go wrong at some point.
Oh, for sure. A shipment could be delayed, a supplier could disappear, a new regulation could appear out of nowhere.
Ugh, talk about a logistical nightmare.
I guess who has to figure it all out? You. You need to think on your feet, be creative, and make sure those goods keep moving.
So it's not just about knowing the rules, it's about knowing how to, let's just say, navigate them when you need to.
Resourcefulness is definitely an asset in this field. And speaking of resources, we've talked a lot about the career insights RoleCatcher provides. But what about their tech tools? How do those actually help someone land a job?
All right, so we're back. And before we jump into that, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
We've talked about what it takes to be an import-export specialist, the skills that'll help you succeed,
Right.
the different paths your career could take,
All the twists and turns, yeah.
and how RoleCatcher is giving people a real edge in the job market.
Absolutely. They're killing it.
Okay, so to all our listeners out there who are hoping to land one of those six-figure salaries, how do these RoleCatcher tools actually work? It's all AI and data, right?
It's all about the algorithms, yeah. They've got AI breaking down job descriptions, making resumes better, even giving feedback on how you interview.
It's like having a personal career coach, but way cheaper.
Right. Instead of paying someone, the computers do the work.
Okay, that's wild. But what about this reverse matching thing? What even is that? It sounds kind of like an import-export dating app.
You know what? It's not that different, honestly.
Yeah.
So basically, instead of you looking for a job, the employers are using RoleCatcher's AI to find you.
Get out of here.
Yep. It's based on your skills, your experience.
So companies are basically swiping right on potential hires.
Pretty much. Which actually, if you think about it,
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Employers want the best fit, right?
Right.
And RoleCatcher can scan through thousands of profiles
Yeah.
to find the perfect match.
So it's a win-win.
Exactly.
This is blowing my mind. But I got to ask, is all this automation, all this AI making things more competitive, especially for people who aren't tech savvy?
It's a good question. And honestly, there's no easy answer.
Right.
On one hand, tools like RoleCatcher can make things fairer, you know.
Instead of it being all about who you know, it's about your skills.
Exactly. You've got the AI analyzing those job descriptions, making your application better, even prepping you for the interview.
That's awesome.
But on the other hand,
yeah,
if you don't even know this technology exists,
you're already behind.
exactly. That's the thing about new technology, right? It can be amazing,
Yeah.
but only if everyone knows about it and has the chance to use it.
It's like that saying, knowledge is power.
100%.
We got to make sure everyone has the tools and the knowledge to make it in this field.
That's why we're doing this deep dive.
Totally.
We're not just talking about shipping routes and paperwork. We're talking about the future, the skills you need.
And how to get ahead.
Yes.
So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired but maybe a little overwhelmed by it all, what's your #1 piece of advice? What's the first step they should take?
Jump in. Explore what RoleCatcher has to offer. Get a sense of the career paths, the skills employers are looking for.
Become a detective, basically.
Yes, and don't forget about those tools that can give you an edge.
Be proactive, be resourceful, and get ready to learn. Because this field is always changing.
And hey, maybe someday you'll be the one sharing your expertise with the world.
Now that's a deep dive I'd listen to. But until then, thank you so much for joining us today.
This was fun. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those cargo ships sailing. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.